All right, so we're moving on, still in personal ID review, but we're moving on from finger spelling to meeting others. So, how do you introduce yourself to a deaf person? What are signs that you need to know? So, it is very important. Again, all this stuff is in your ASL notebook. You need to put it in there because it's all going to be on midterms and finals. They love these sort of questions. So, meeting others, very important anytime you see this to write the deaf community is a tight knit community, or the deaf community is very close, or the deaf community knows each other, or things like that. Deaf community is a small, close knit community. Um, because when meeting others, they want to know your name, if you are deaf, hearing, or hard of hearing, where you studied sign language, was it at school, in college, and the name of your teacher or professor. So when I went to Keuka College to study, I had two deaf professors, and when they asked me where I learned it, I told them Olympia and Apollo at the time, and when I told them the teachers' names, they actually knew who they were. So it is a close-knit community, and that's why they want to know. They want to know, oh, so you know so and so. Oh, I see. Things like that. Some signs to learn. You have tricks for remembering them. This is going to help you, and I'm going to use these words constantly. So, initialized signs, you should remember from last year. Initialized signs are signs that use the same hand shape as the first letter of the word. So, the first letter of the word is also the hand shape you use for the sign. So, for example, later starts with an L and uses an L hand shape. So, later. So does language, right? Language starts with an L and uses an L hand shape. So does another one. Oh, hard of hearing, right? H has an H hand shape and starts hard of hearing. And deaf. There's a D hand shape and starts with a D. So those are all initialized signs. I'm going to use that term constantly. So please remember what initialized means. Like, what are your initials? Your initials are the first letter of your name, right? That's what initials are. So initialized signs, think about that first letter of the word, same as the hand shape. Types of signs. So there's one-handed signs. You only use your dominant hand, like hearing. Simple. Two-handed, symmetrical, and more terms that I'm going to use all the time. Symmetrical means the same, right? So both hands look the same, they move at the same time, they're in the same location, like teacher. They're mirroring each other, they're symmetrical. Two-handed asymmetrical means that they're different. You still have two hands, but they move different, maybe have a different hand shape, maybe are in different locations. So for example, learn, right? This hand stays still, this hand moves. Different hand shapes, different locations, different movements, so they're asymmetrical and not the same. We're going to talk about hand shapes because it is important to know the difference. This slide is about types of signs. You're just telling me how many hands you use and if they're doing the same thing at the same time. Hand shapes are the actual shape of your hand when signing. It's usually a letter or a number. So for example, the sign for you would use a one hand shape, you. And people often get confused, that's why we're going over this, when I say how many one-handed shapes or one-handed signs, how many one-handed signs are in the sentence? If I ask you that, I'm asking you how many of the signs are you only using one hand? But if I ask you how many signs in the sentence use one hand shape, you're looking at the shape of your hand, not how many hands you're using. Okay, so make sure you know the difference between the two. Also, hand shape is part of the 5 parameters, which we're going to talk about later on. and we'll use that forever and ever. So hand shape is actually very important to remember. All right.